Good morning. Today I wanted to speak about this little guy and ND filters for this little guy. Now I'm sure all of you are probably gone out and bought these Freewell filters, and your case probably looks a little bit like that with two filters missing because they've fallen off during flight, or when you've clipped a branch, or when you've had a little crash and you've lost them. And that's because these are only held on by this tiny little magnet which goes around here, and what happens is the filter goes So what I've done, gone on to the marvel of Amazon and some research and found these K&F Concept Nano X series. Comes with UV, PL, ND8, ND16, ND32, ND64. Happy days. The good thing about these is, I'll show you, I'll get it out of the box. These actually clip over so they don't fall off. Let me demonstrate. Fit there, clipped on. That ain't coming off for love nor money, mate. That is the way forward. So without further ado, let's go outside and have a little fly. Okay, so he unintentionally went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this one, but bear with me. First of all, check this little clip out. This was a nice little real world test of if the filter would stay on. Oops. Yep, it stayed on, by the way. So this is where we started just testing the filters. This was just going to be the video, and so in the 8s, the 16s and the polarized and the UV. However, I noticed when I was flying backwards and forwards here that the fence and the roofs were flickering, and even the trees, which you can see flying past, they were flickering really badly, and that's what kind of led me down the rabbit hole of why is it doing that? It looks rubbish, it shouldn't do that. Then I started blaming the filters, thinking it was them. We then tested on my son's Neo with Freewell filters, and they were doing it as well. So I kind of thought, right, well, how and why are we doing this? When I was replaying and watching the subtitles of the video, I noticed that the exposure value was changing like mad in the manual settings, and there's no way of stopping it because obviously that's what the camera does and that's how it works. So I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do? So we then moved on to looking at changing the settings. So I'm going to explain what I did now. So the only way that I could work out that we could stop the exposure value becoming automatic was to set the ISO to automatic. So I set the ISO to a max of 200, and then I could fix the exposure value to 0, or you can then do whatever you wanted to do to it, but I set it to 0. And what that achieved was it reduced the flickering to almost nothing, and although the ISO sort of stayed around 200, 190, 170, 180, sort of that sort of area, it still gave you the benefit of the ND filter, yet there was no flickering. And just in a minute we're going to see how that looks compared to these. This is obviously the UV filter, which you have to use auto settings for, otherwise it's just pointless, it'll be all blown out. Although saying that, it does actually look pretty good. And then coming up now is the polarized filter, again using the auto settings. This is just straight off the camera, so obviously you can do a bit of adjustment and play with it, but again looks pretty good. Obviously polarized settings, they kind of or polarized filters, so I say, they quite finicky, they kind of work one way and not the other. So but overall looks pretty good. Okay, so now we're going to get into the new settings with the same ND filters, obviously. So here's the ND8 with the EV set to 0, and there is no flickering anymore. Looks really good. Fence is not flickering, the roof's the tiniest amount. ND16. Now this was shot at a slightly different time of the day, so the sun was slightly different, which is annoying, but that's England for you. But again, the flickering has gone, which is good. Now the ND32, which is probably best for the day, best for the sky and everything else. Nice motion blur. I was flying in manual mode, so I was doing about 23 mile an hour with the Neo, so it looks really good. The ND64 is probably a bit too dark, but again, you could adjust that with the EV. Now you can actually adjust it. So that kind of brings me to the end of this video, guys. I hope you found it interesting and informative. I've got links and stuff for the ND filters below. They're actually really good and I do recommend them. Please give me a like and subscribe and comments below, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers, bye.